Hi, my name is Christina Finch, and today I am going to discuss some of the key communication aspects that I found to be attainable within my personal and professional communication styles. Not only do I want to outline some of the principles, but also discuss a plan of action to better my communication skills. My goal with this plan is to be able to be a more present and mindful listener with the children and families that I work with that may have experienced traumatic situations. The goal that is important is that I want to be a human service professional that not is only is trustworthy in my listening skills, but also empathetic and able to enable both the children and the families that I come in contact with to feel empowered in creating effective interventions for care. Per my Uniquely You profile, I'm a consistent high SI or IS. Per Carbonell and How to Solve the People Puzzle, I am a people pleaser that is very concerned about relating to others and receiving acceptance. I tend to be very emotional and find fulfillment in helping others, which is consistent with Carbonell. A final point I would like to touch on is in regards to my Uniquely You description with avoidance to conflict. Oftentimes, I get so engulfed in people pleasing and avoiding conflict with others that I often forget my responsibilities to my other duties. John Stewart in Bridges Not Walls puts emphasis on the fact that our culture is ever present in our communication styles. Culture and identity play a large part in who I am within my communication, as much of my educational background has spanned off of the human services profession. I also am a wife and a mother, which is ever present in my personal and my professional communication. I have previously identified as a leader, which had a negative impact for a period of time on my communication patterns as I faced many of the common challenges that we will discuss. One of the most significant barriers that I face has to do with my emotions as described above. Jim Peterson in Why Don't We Listen Better discusses the flat brain theory, which I can relate to more than I'd like to admit. The theory involves when we experience a thud, or a situation that causes our stomachs to overload with emotions, causing our hearts to harden and our brains to flatten. At this point, the only thing controlling our communication is our emotions. I suffer from this frequently. I also speak with my body language and found that what Peterson describes as the flat brain slump. So when my emotions start to fill up and they are so big that that's all I'm speaking with, this nonverbal communication that I walk around with is present, whether I think it to be or not, which others often perceive in our communication. A second communication barrier that I found after some self-reflection is that I face the concept of mindlessness. Stewart discusses this to be when we are not fully present in our listening. We may be focused on our to-do list, the situations and our surroundings, or even how we want to get out of that current conversation. I found that sadly I engage in this type of listening a lot, especially with my spouse. He would often complain that I did not listen at all, or I regrettably could not remember what he said to me not long before. God himself instructs us to listen, to be quick to listen, and to slow to speak. A third barrier is one that revolves around conflict. Prior to this course, I had a connotation that with conflict there should be a winner and there should be a loser. In reality, we face conflicts on a daily basis, both personally and professionally. I saw situations as conflicts instead of productive conversations that are necessary to benefit the well-being of our mutual patients. I avoided discussions in fear of losing the trust of someone or the respect or the relationship altogether. Stewart discusses the importance of thinking in terms of, I hear you and I have a different perspective. This involves many aspects that were ingrained in the course context, such as empathetic listening, mutual goal setting, and nonverbal and verbal presentation. The three barriers listed above were all ones that once I acknowledged that I was experiencing, I immediately employed some of the helpful strategies described in the content. When I found myself experiencing the flat brain syndrome, I focused on resources surrounding my personal presentation. The way I present myself has a lot to do with how my peers listen to me, my other listeners, and even my family members and how they perceive me. I focused more on my posture and my facial expressions in the course of my work, especially when experiencing a stomach full of emotions. So when I was self-aware of the fact that my emotions were filling up my stomach and my heart was hardening and my brain was going flat, just being more cognizant of how I was presenting myself. In Stewart's compilation, The Theory of Mindfulness discusses the richness and meaningful art of listening. Per Stewart, we speak at 125 words per minute and can process up to 500 words per minute. He also gives a great illustration of washing the dishes and how we can be so caught up on the tea that awaits us after washing the dishes that we are not fully present in the act of washing those dishes. Mindfulness is the opposite, and experiencing things in that moment. He discusses the practice that this theory may take practice over time, but the achievability can enrich our communication skills greatly. Reflection is also a major strategy that can assist with active listening. France and Weichel discuss this, summarizing some of the important pieces of our conversation. This can be done by using fresh words, summarizing important pieces, thoughts and feelings, or focusing on nonverbal and verbal cues that are given. In a Norwegian-Swedish study that was conducted on nursing students, education was given over a 4-year period. This involved empathetic communication as well as mindfulness to assist improving the healthcare practices. 2 scales were completed, the Jefferson Scale of Empathy and the Lager 14 Items Mindfulness Scale. Overall, the study showed a large correlation with communication, self-efficacy, and mindfulness, as well as empathy. All of these items, which have been discussed in length, are not only key in being good interpersonal communicators, but also in the healthcare. The final group of strategies I want to focus on revolves around conflict resolution. There are 2 key components that I want to focus on. The first being showing empathy, warmth, and genuineness in all my relationships, as these are major components to building positive relationships described by France and Weichel. In conflict, especially empathy, warmth, and genuineness, these are key components to showing the person that you're interacting with that you are actively listening and that you care about what they have to say and are truly meaning what you say. The second is in relation to having an open dialogue. Stewart, early in the course text, talks about the importance of comparing that you cannot inhale without exhaling and vice versa. In conflict, it's easy to get caught up in what to say next and your response instead of truly listening to the proposal the listener made. This can easily lead to broken relationships, degenerative spirals, and webs of mistakes. This was shown and exemplified in the movie that we watched, Fireproof, where Caleb and Catherine easily fell into degenerative spirals and webs of conflicts. Neither would listen to what the other had to say in their dialogue because they were so caught up in their defensiveness and their defensive tones that they weren't focused on what the other was saying. The strategies listed above can seem overwhelming at first and can make one think that their communication preferences all along have been flawed. There is always a way, and with God's strength, any action plan can be created. The first step in the action plan is to focus on things that bring me those negative emotions and that thud experience. When I experience that thud, taking a moment to see what is actually causing that and opening up communication in an empathetic way to avoid getting stuck in that mindset. Another is active listening in my professional as well as my personal life. Focusing on my nonverbal cues that I am giving. For example, getting on my client's level, who may be sitting in a hospital bed. Being mindful of the appropriate amount of eye contact as well as personal space and touch. Culture plays a large part in this as well, being mindful of cultural preferences and listening and paying attention to their cues. A study conducted primarily surrounding therapists and how active listening impacts clients, it has been shown that, and especially in times of distress, the verbal and non-verbal active signs of listening are shown to have more positive outcomes with improvement. Reflection is the final step in my action plan, which for me is the largest. In my workplace, when attempting to reflect on what someone is saying, I am finding that I am often sounding like a parent. I have been focusing on avoiding why questions to get clarification. Surface feelings, expressions explained by France and Weichel are ones that I have found success in trying. When approaching patients, if they do not immediately engage, I am practicing reflecting on what I am seeing, such as, "It appears you may be a little scared today." This can allow them to gain trust in me, and I'm finding that they are seeing that I'm actively paying attention to their body language and actually caring about how they may be feeling. I want to close with the knowledge that was gained with this course has already continued to benefit me. In Matthew 11:15, God says that for those who have ears, let them hear. We can never forget to listen and listen with love in all we do. Without good communication that shows empathy and genuineness, there will always be a barrier that stops us from doing the greater good that God intended for us. Thank you.